When HRD network was conceptualized and registered between 1985 and 86, it had the first main objective of humanizing systems and organizations in national life and enabling persons who are working in various systems, various organizations, and in the country to make best contributions. Contributions where? To the corporate sector, to schools, colleges, government, not for profit organizations, and the society at large. So, the main mission of the National HRD Network is humanizing systems. Now, a question comes, if farmers are committing suicides, or if the farmers' income is going down, if there is unemployment increasing, if skill development is going on, if there is a movement like Swachh Bharat, if NGOs can play a far more important role, and if the government systems can be made more entrepreneurial and responsive, and if the institutions of higher education, science, research, technology, they can deliver better results than what they are. Does the HRD profession or HR knowledge systems, etc., have a role? In other words, does the National HRD Network has a role? Obviously, National HRD Network has a role. And what is the role? This is very well envisaged in the original mission, vision, or you call it as the rules and regulations and memorandum of understanding of the National HRD Network. I would strongly recommend people to read line by line of the National HRD Network because HRD is conceived not merely as a HRD department or as a profession to serve only certain sectors of the society. It is conceptualized as a, a process, a philosophy, a way of life. That is why we used in that particular document a term called uh, contributing and facilitating the HRD movement in the country. So, HRD movement in the country, as we now say, treats every human being as his or her own HRD manager. Every human being, which means that every citizen of this particular country, why this country of the universe, is a potential human resource development agent or a possibility, as we talk of nowadays, a new term that we use to say that every human being is filled with unlimited talent, which the National HRD Network, in its own memorandum, recognizes. I am tempted to share, therefore, what is the way in which a professional body, either it is National HRD Network or another body like NIPM or a ISTD or even a local management association, what is the way they can contribute? I certainly think that among all the institutions, one of the institutions that stands out very well is the Ahmedabad Management Association. I think it will be very interesting to look at the kind of sectors Ahmedabad Management Association has started focusing on, thanks to the vision of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, who started it much before the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad or the All India Management Association. Today, the Ahmedabad Management Association targets at every section of the society. There are programs for children, there are programs for youth, there are programs for women, there are programs on skill development, there are programs for teachers, there are programs for nurses, there are programs for doctors, and there are programs for all those who want to learn about EQ or IQ or a spiritual quotient and things of that nature. You only have to go and visit the summer program schedule of the Ahmedabad Management Association, and you will see that it has touched various target groups. Now, this is the kind of a vision we had when we started the National HRD Network. HRD is for all. That was the assumption that we made. All means all sections of the society. it's easy to have a profession developed in organized sector, and that is where we started with the corporate sector, because it is the corporate sector that had a lot of amenability to develop systems, to develop processes, to experiment, to see the benefit of the various systems and processes we have started with, and also to measure the impact. But the idea was not to limit to corporate sector. In fact, in the first conference of the National HRD Network in 1986, held at Chennai, we had a large group of government officers, including some of the IAS officers from different states, particularly from Gujarat, came and attended and talked about HRD in government. And Economic Times devoted a whole section for HRD and its meaning, and talked about HRD in various sectors. So I think if HRD association, whether it is NHRDN or personal NIPM or ISTD or any of them, if they have to devote, I would say they should be spending at least, in fact, I think I would say this is a very conservative thing, 50% of their resources on people at large, other than those who are in the corporate sector, which means it could be government, it could be even the society, which includes, I think, people who occupy leadership positions in panchayats, municipal corporations, in towns and cities and things of that nature, and ultimately, I think all those who man the public services and so on. So I think we should be spending enormous amount of time, because we are talking of the objective of National HRD Network, and I'm sure the similar other bodies, as humanizing systems uh, and humanizing organizations in our national life, and enabling people who are working there to make best contributions. A citizen can make good contributions if we can help the citizens to develop himself or herself, recognize his talent, provide a lot of opportunities, and so on. But I think we are not uh, working at the society at large. So if you are not working at the society at large, can you at least work in organized sector? And we have phenomenal amount of organized sector that is expected to influence the rest of the world. And that is, I think, for example, the government. How do you uh, create humanized systems in government? How do you create humanizing systems in various banks, financial institutions? Or if there are bodies that facilitate startups and things of like entrepreneurship development institutions, higher education institutions, schools, colleges, hospitals, and so on. So, if I have to say, the National HRD Network particularly has to focus their resources, I would say uh, the resources are of two kinds of the National HRD Network. One is the financial and other kind of resources. Second, I think more important resource that the National HRD Network, and this is also true with other professional bodies, have is the donated time of various members of these bodies, particularly the office bearers. Just to give you an example, let us take a chapter, any chapter, like a Bangalore chapter, Hyderabad chapter, Bombay chapter, or a small chapter like Visakhapatnam chapter, Ranchi chapter, any chapter that you take. Suppose there are 10 uh, office bearers. I'm taking 10 as a kind of a symbolic kind of a thing, because normally there is an executive committee, there is a president, there is a treasurer, there is a secretary, joint secretary, and there is something like a program committee and so on. So if you take at a given point of time 10 as a leadership group, and if every member, all these leadership groups and professional bodies are leadership groups that make their time available. So time is the biggest resource that you have. So if there are 10 members and each member commits about 100 hours in a year, 100 hours would really mean about uh, hardly about 5% of their office time. Now, this office time need not be given during office hours. This office time can be given outside office hours, and that really constitutes about 2 to 3% of their actual real time. So that means if you have 350 weeks or 365 days, 50 weeks, and every week you devote 2 hours for National HRD Network or NIPM or ISTD, any of them. So that means you are talking of about 100 hours. Normally, an office bearer spends minimum 100 hours or maybe 200 hours. So let us estimate there are 100 hours and 10 people. 10 multiplied by 100, it is about you have almost about 1,000 hours. So you get a full leadership, uh, half a year of a leadership time available for this. If you make it 200 hours, then you have a full man year, one full man year available of for leadership time. Now you can count a full man year of leadership time is equal to, in financial terms, anywhere ranging from, let us say, of the people of the kind that we are talking of nowadays, given the kind of salaries, even an ordinary assistant associate professor gets about 15 to 20 lakhs a year. So you are talking of about 20 lakhs to something like about a crore. That is the kind of time, resource, talent equivalent that is available from these people. In addition to this, you have the whatever I think the financial base that is there of the corporation, if there are certain reserves and things of that kind. So let us assume that you have something like 10 lakhs of rupees as reserves and 20 lakhs is the time. So that means in a year you have equivalent of 30 lakhs or equivalent to 3,000 man hours of time that is available to devote and to achieve. Now this is not a, in one way if you look at it, is not a big amount that you have. This is also not a small amount that you have. You have 3,000 man hours. Now how much of these resource should be spent on corporate sector to discover new things, to disseminate knowledge, etc., etc. How much should be spent on not-for-profit organizations? How much should be spent on government agencies? And how much should be spent on understanding what is happening in our rural India, which supplies a lot of resources at subsidized ways for the rest of the country. Now, in my view, I think it is farmers who subsidize by virtue of, I think, all the produce of the rice, wheat, various vegetables, and a whole lot of other kind of things that are made available at a very highly subsidized rate for the rest of the country and so on. I think these are the kind of people who help us to live our life very comfortably in urban sector. So I would say at least 50% of these 3,000 hours of the leadership team, and even if there are full-time kind of employees that are there of the professional bodies, should be spent for larger causes. This is because corporate sector can take care of itself and from the 90% of the other resources that they have. Now we are simply talking of 1 to 2 leadership years available for discovering new knowledge of human, how people develop in rural areas, how people develop in not-for-profit organizations, how people can be made to serve in the government sector and so on. I think this is nothing. This is a very small kind of an amount. Consider this and contrast this with, I think, most of the time, if a professional body is spending time to earn more money and use this money to serve corporate sector, which already has plenty of resources to generate new knowledge, to disseminate new knowledge, then you have not done anywhere near justice to the purpose for which you are set up. The purpose for which you are set up is, once again I say, to humanize the systems, processes, and various other kind of things in organizations and in our national life. I think this is applicable for NIPM, ISTD, management bodies, and certainly to a large extent to National HRD Network. I am sharing some of these thoughts to rejuvenate and to rethink and relook at the kind of a role some of these professional bodies are playing. I think these professional bodies sometimes spend enormous amounts of time. That is where I have my famous thesis, means become ends. You set up a secretariat, you set up some full-time people to service the organization, but the original objectives are forgotten, and the tools that you have used to sustain to maintain the organization becomes the objectives of the organization, and we forget the original mission and vision. So that is the reason why I am taking this time to communicate to everyone that it is important that we should keep recapitulating the original mission with which a professional body has been started, and live up to the expectations of all those who were instrumental in forming and promoting and institutionalizing some of these bodies. I hope I'm making sense. If you think I'm making sense, do let me have a view of you on the YouTube. Thank you very much, and all the best.